You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to the Dangerous Liberty Podcast, where we know the only thing more dangerous than liberty is the lack thereof. How's everybody doing out there tonight? Summer, how was your week?
It was exciting.
We still got Chris's name down here. He's here in spirit.
Yeah.
Chris,
I'm sure he's
we miss you, buddy. I'm sorry you're sick. He's got the man flu. So, you know, he had
man, I don't know if he's going to survive that.
I'll tell you, it's worse than childbirth. You don't know anything about that. Oh man, we got a great show coming up for you. I want to say hi to everybody. Jason Sponsor over there. We got Bravo Force Solutions, Jason Ross, Willie Everett. Jason Ross, welcome. I think that's the first time I've seen your name, so glad you joined us. We got Mike Hen, we got Bubba Ray. I got a cord hanging right here in front of my eyeballs. We got, of course, Chris Rouse over there in spirit and in body on the other side of the interwebs. We got Loli5232. Now
you missed Blue Line Wife. That's Mike's wife.
Blue Line Wife, Mike's wife. She has a name. Okay, I'm sorry that my wife is so misogynistic. All right, folks. Yeah, we got a great show coming up. I'm going to introduce our guests in just a minute, but we actually have two guests, or not really a guest. We have someone that we want to introduce you to, a new member of the Paramount team.
Permanent family.
Who do we got right here? Look what we got right here. This is Aries. Put him up on the table. Okay. Put him up on the table. There he is. That's Aries. He is a cane Corso, and he's about 8.5 weeks, and he's still figuring out life right now. He didn't know he was going to be part of a podcast tonight. We didn't prepare him for that. But anyways, I will go ahead and introduce our guest. This is one thing I actually meant to ask him to make sure that I got his last name right. But it's Adam Scepaniak. If I butchered your last name, Adam, fix that for me. Correct me.
It's close.
What is the correct?
He's being kind right
What is
now.
the correct pronunciation?
It's super Polish and German, and you got to say like Pontiac the car.
Right?
Scepaniak.
Scepaniak. Got it.
Yeah, that's a good way to help people remember.
The C is silent. That's all you got to say. Scepaniak.
Yeah.
There you go. I like it. A silent C. That's how it should be. All C should be silent, just like women. Just joking. All right. Adam, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
So I'm the editor of alloutdoor.com. I do a lot of freelance writing for 2A Media. So a little bit of magazines, a lot of stuff on the internet, the Firearm blog, Springfield Armory's blog, The Armory Life, outdoorhub.com, alloutdoor.com. I've also written for like the NRA, Boyd's Gun Stocks, MDT. So anybody that's willing to let me publish content regarding guns, I'm here to write articles.
Awesome.
And that's actually I call it my night owl job. My day job is my family has a gun shop. My parents started it, had that for about 14, 15 years. They have retired, so my brother and I run that. And I'm also a volunteer firefighter in my hometown. I'm currently a city councilman in my hometown. And I've publicly announced like a week ago, I'm going to be running for mayor of my hometown this fall.
Wow, what do you do with all the free time you have?
I go shoot guns, archery, try to make sure that my wife still knows that I love her.
See, Adam, you could have stroked our ego and said, "Hey, you are going to formally announce on our show tonight." That would have been sweet. Either way, no, that's awesome. So, what made you want to get into local politics?
Well, so you're a business owner. I'm a business owner too. My hometown is about 78,000 people, and I just saw a lot of people that were complaining about our city and how unwelcoming they are to new businesses, or like how unhelpful they were to old businesses. And being a business-minded person, I'm like, that's not right. Like, I'm very libertarian. I want to, live and let live, like let people enjoy their life and then basically leave everybody alone. And the fact that like there's so many barriers for businesses, it's just so difficult to like operate and do things that shouldn't be difficult. That basically made me mad enough where I thought I should run for like a city office. I was doing like all these smaller subcommittees, like there's economic boards, there's planning commission boards for like regulatory things. I was doing that already on like a basically a free service position, like serving the
Mm.
community. And I finally decided to run for city council. And I didn't like put out any yard signs. I didn't like pay like for $1,000 in Facebook advertising. Just like me being on the fire department, running a gun shop, and like knowing a moderate amount of people in the community, I ran and I got on. So,
That's
and I've
Nice.
awesome,
been
man.
doing city council for 2 years now, and that's been going really good.
Now, how far are you from Minneapolis?
I'm about an hour and a half. In Minnesota, we always talk in time travel. We never say miles. I'm about
Right.
an hour and a half west of the Twin Cities.
That's awesome. So you're far enough away from the crazies. So I'm sure is your community pretty conservative too?
It is like we're a rural town, like 7,000 people. We're close to like St. Cloud, Minnesota. If anybody on the podcast has heard of that, St. Cloud
Nobody,
is kind of
nobody
big.
has. Nobody has.
I
St.
have.
Cloud is St. Cloud is like 70K people. So like we're like adjacent to like a larger city, but like the town itself that I live in, St. Joe, is decently small.
No, that makes sense. And there's definitely no, well, I'll say from my perspective, doesn't seem like there's any business out there that is a greater challenge than trying to run a gun shop in so many communities. Between the local regulations when it comes to gun shops, never mind the ATF and everything else that you have to deal with, how state laws are so different. It's the more gun shop owners, in my opinion, that we have in politics, the better off that we're going to be. That's for sure. So I'm voting for you for president. I'll just write you in, Adam. Going to write you
I
in.
appreciate that.
You got to fix the ATF, brother. We gotta fix those guys. Yeah, so you're busy in politics. You're a first responder. You're running for mayor. So when does your mayoral campaign? When is that like campaign season? When is the election? I guess that's a better question.
We'll be voting in November, just like for president and
Right.
everything else. But for I don't know, legal reasons or just like statutory reasons, I can't apply for my mayorship until July 1st. So
Okay.
like I've mentally made the commitments, like I've talked this out with my wife and we're gonna fit this into our busy lives that we already have. But July 1st, I can formally submit the paperwork and then I'm gonna be officially on the ballot.
So how's your?
So that's basically a 4-month window
Yeah.
between declaring and election.
Yeah.
How does your wife feel about all that? She pretty into it? She glad you're doing it?
She's actually pushed and motivated me more to be active in like politics
Yeah.
than I care to be. I just want to be the grumpy gun guy, like get off my lawn. And she's like, no, you should participate in these things and try and affect change. Like I have a lot of background in just running businesses, like working in different companies. Like I have the gun shop, I do writing. I'm honestly a big country boy, so like I get along with a lot of the rural folk, hillbillies, rural folk, whatnot. So like I feel like I'm a chameleon that can talk and work with a lot of different people. I have a lot of life experiences working with technology, like everything we do in the 21st century, like this podcast.
Sure.
So she's been a really huge advocate for me to like get into politics, stay with it, and everything that I wish to see different, actually act on it and see it through. So
No, I'll tell you, I don't think it wasn't until just a couple years ago that I realized how I've always been, I've always enjoyed politics, right? And mainly at the national level. But I didn't realize how important local politics really was until we started having some, you saw where we're basically about 15, 20 minutes from Summit Point. And this is not really a rural community. Where we live, it kind of is, but it's a smaller
Where
town.
we live, it definitely is rural.
Yeah, I mean, where are we at? But Martinsburg and stuff like that.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
really rural. But the point is, it's a smaller town. And I've always taken for granted that, it was pretty conservative, pretty, again, just fairly conservative. And then we started seeing a lot of crazy things happens in school. We just
Even
had,
like county council and stuff in the last couple of years have gotten stupid.
yeah, they really
I mean,
have.
if you're watching and you're on the county council,
You're
do
stupid.
something.
Oh, I thought the takeaway was they're stupid. That's what I got. So
Make yourself not
you know,
stupid.
I think people like you and many people out there, they definitely got to get much more involved in the local politics. And
we've discussed that many times on the podcast, how important local politics is in making real change that can snowball into bigger change.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, that's the thing too, is I think that's something that the left has really figured out. You see George Soros and all these big lefties, you know, they are funding a lot of these attorney generals and all these smaller offices and smaller districts and things like that. They're doing a lot in that regard. I don't think we on the right that are, again, libertarian, I consider myself a libertarian conservative, same thing as you, man. I just want to be left alone, and I want the government to leave me alone. And
small government,
you know, exactly. And we need to get more involved in that stuff, because I do think that people that are like-minded as us, there's more of us out there. But the problem is we're out there running businesses, we're out there working, we're out there doing things where apparently all these other people have a lot of free time to do a lot of activist type. You know, again, they're running for offices, they're getting out there. They don't mind having their voices heard. They want their voices heard. And, you know, they've been much more effective than I think we would like to give them credit for.
well, even the West Virginia senator that we had on recently, you know, stay-at-home mom, homeschooling mom,
Yep.
you know, got involved locally and then ended up running for West Virginia senator or representative.
Yeah.
And she's made a lot of change, positive change for the state.
Absolutely.
And not just in abstract ways, but in very concrete, affect your life everyday ways.
And she did a lot for the homeschooling
Yeah.
movement too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's one thing that like we're going to be entertaining Andrew and I if we have kids soon, is that we're older for like a new married couple. I'm 37, she's 32, and if we can have a kid, we're looking at like the public education school system,
Right.
which I came up through, and thank to God I'm still here. But you know, if you put a kid in many public schools, not all of them are bad, but many, it's indoctrination, it's not education.
Yes.
So like I'm really, both me and my wife, we're both pushing for having our prospective kids that hopefully we can have someday be homeschooled.
Right.
100%. Absolutely. That should actually be your campaign slogan right there. Whiskey, steak, guns, and freedom. I mean, it really doesn't get much simpler than that. Hey, I do want to, real quick, Sean, throw up Holy 5232's comment
I was
up there.
just looking up. I've heard a lot about this lately, and I was looking up some current wait
this
times.
is something that's going on. And Adam's a gun shop owner. He can speak to this as well and see what his experience is in this. I'm hearing this all over the place. Quite frankly, I do think the suppressor wait times are coming down without a doubt, but I do think we're latching on to a lot of anecdotal incidents, and people are running with that as gospel. I think if people are expecting 2, 3, less than a week, a month, even wait times, I think you're going to be disappointed. I think that's happening.
It is happening
in some places, without a doubt, it's happening. But I don't think that's going to be the typical experience. What if? Oh, go ahead, Summer.
No, well, I'll just
Throw us up on split screen real quick, Sean.
I've had a lot of people coming in the shop or calling. I have sold so many suppressors in the last 2 weeks because people are aware that the wait times are coming down.
The wait times are coming down, folks. I was lying. It's 2 days.
Well, I'm
2
just
days
saying.
tops. Guaranteed.
You better get a tea bag while you can. Well, no. But I had someone personally come into the shop that just got approved in 2 days. But here's the caveat. They're all doing individual.
Yeah.
Now, I just looked up, you can check, average wait times through various websites. And, they even wrote how the wait times are coming down. They now average, the median wait time for an individual Form 4 now is 4 days.
Wow.
The median wait time for a trust is 130. So that still sucks, but that has still come down substantially from what it was.
Yeah. 130 days.
130 days.
Yeah, because it was like 10 months.
Yeah.
Or
it was,
over
it
a
was
year.
basically like
sometime.
300 days. So it's less than half. And I still advocate and try to tell everyone you should
get a trust.
You should get a trust. There's a lot of advantages, and it may take you 2 more months or so, but what it is saying here is that for people that are using basically a standardized trust that the ATFC's, a little frequently, that they don't have to vet through legal and read all the language and check it all out, those are getting approved much faster too.
Adam, what are you seeing?
Yeah.
You got more experience in this than us.
So I'm just going to give everybody like a micro like explanation about silencers if they're new to this whole game. So if you're going to buy a silencer through a class 3 dealer like Paramount or like mine if you're from Minnesota, you can go through like one of several pathways. You can purchase one as an individual. You can purchase one as a trust, which gives you more liberties, more freedoms within owning that silencer. Or if you own a business, you can do LLC S corporation. So you have one of those three pathways, you can get your silencer. And what Summer is talking about is if you go individual, that's the path of least resistance, because when the ATF is going to be doing their background check on you, they're just doing it on one person, an individual. So it's less clutter, less junk they need to wade through to get your approval and your silencer to you. A trust gives you way more liberty, freedom, and protections in many capacities. But with a trust, you're adding people, you're adding layers to that background check. So that's why what Summer was speaking to, the longer wait times, it's not because of just the paperwork itself is more, but they're doing more background checks on extra individuals. And then we see next to no people doing corporation silencer purchases, but
Yeah.
that is a third way. And for us, we're seeing the exact same thing you are. Like if you're doing an E-form individual, super fast, insanely fast. If you're doing the trust, the more layers, the more people, additional background checks, it's going significantly slower. And now I'm getting down to minutia, but I want to explain this to people. If you're buying a silencer as an individual, a trust, a corporation, what you're filing is a Form 4. That's the name of the document. When we're all buying guns, it's a Form 4473. So when we're buying a silencer as individuals, just good, God loving civilians, it's a Form 4. If we're selling one like Paramount selling one to like a SWAT department or a law enforcement department, a government entity, it's a Form 5. I've been selling some silencers to like a SWAT group where I live recently, and they're getting their silencer approvals in like 12 hours,
Wow.
insanely fast
Wow.
because it's going to a government entity. And third form would be a Form 3, and say like Paramount Tactical is a sweet silencer that I want in my store. They can fill out a Form 3 and then they're going to ship it from dealer to dealer. Those are like 3 to 4 days. I don't know why that's
See,
that
mine are
much
still
slower.
taking like 2 weeks for a Form
Yeah.
3.
We're
I
still
don't,
Okay.
having,
yeah, I
yeah.
don't know why, but maybe it's
See how
just
like
me.
you got Form 3 dealer to dealer for like all the people listening. Form 4 is for like you, the normal gun guy purchasing Form 4. And then Form 5 is to like SWAT, LE, that kind of thing. And I I have like an idea in my mind why I think these are getting way faster, but I don't have any validity to say this is 100% true. But there's a guy, Brandon, who owns Silencer Central, South Dakota, and he proposed legislation last year that the ATF needs to get their wait times cut down significantly. Otherwise, money from the hunting licenses and firearm licenses that we pay for, the Pittman-Robertson Act,
Right.
that's what helps fund the NFA and the ATF. And this bill that Silencer Central helped propose, if they don't get their wait times down, they don't process their paperwork faster, they receive less money from the Pittman-Robertson Act. So I
Mm.
don't know if that's their motivation, a literal financial incentive to work harder or work at all for the first time ever.
Right.
But that'd be my guess, is that like the Pittman-Robertson Act is like motivating them that like, hey, if you actually work a full 10-hour day and like actually get your shit done, you're going to get more funding for the NFA ATF. Like, I don't know if that's actually what's making them process these
I
faster, but
mean,
that'd
it
be my
always is.
guess.
It always is follow the money. I mean, it sounds like a viable theory to me.
No, I mean, let me tell you something. You know, even when I worked for Department of State, when there was different things going on that started to cut into funding, whether it was intended to be punitive from Congress or whatever else, there was always knee-jerk reaction one way or the other. So I think that's probably exactly it. If they think they're going to be losing funding and suddenly they need to start doing their job or they're going to lose their job, some of those folks. But you know, the funny thing is, we're right here in Martinsburg, so this is where all of those forms are
Yep.
actually ironically, you know, done.
I went and knocked on the door and told them they needed to hurry up.
Yeah. Summer's trying to slip them envelopes. It gets
Or leave
weird
them some
sometimes.
donuts.
Yeah.
Bribe them with donuts. And by the way, Adam, that was a great, concise explanation.
Absolutely, it
Yeah.
was. All right, that's it. It doesn't get any better than this. We'll call it a night right there. That was good. No, we definitely, Adam and I talked about, what are some topics that we wanted to cover, and he threw out some good ones, I think, and I think we'll get right into those. But one of the things that he talked about was, force escalation from a civilian standpoint. I think this is something that we don't cover enough, actually, because, that is definitely something that you need to plan ahead of time when it comes to making sure that you're using the right tool for the right problem at hand. And the problem that we see in the civilian world is that many of us advocate carrying guns, and absolutely you should. But the problem that we see also many times when we have self-defense situations, I'll say less than you would expect, to be honest with you. You see less problems in the civilian sector than really you think there would when it comes to self-defense. We obviously, there's issues out there where people use excessive force from a self-defense standpoint. But this is something I think as a responsible gun owner that you need to start thinking about and training for, and just, again, making sure that you're aware that that gun is not your only tool, and it shouldn't be the first thing that you always go to, especially if your life isn't in imminent danger. What do you think, Adam?
I love talking about this, the topic force of escalation, because there's so many people in the gun community that think like the firearm that they're carrying, the shotgun they have underneath their bed is like their final sword, like it's going to solve all problems. And it's
Mm-hmm.
honestly not,
Nope.
because it's a range of scale. Like if somebody is verbally assaulting you, you can't respond in kind with a shotgun blast to the face. Like that's not appropriate. And something that another instructor, Chuck Hager, has said that I really like is he said that you need to have something between a harsh word and a gun. So
Yep.
it's a scale. There's levels. And what he's
100%.
talking about is like you need situational awareness. Like 90% of bad conflicts of like any kind can be avoided with situational awareness. Like take out the iPod earbuds, like get off of your phone, like head up on a swivel when you're walking through a parking lot or just in public. Like if you're walking down a trail, like don't be dinking around on your phone. Be aware. Other things is just using your voice. If like there's some creepy McCreepy guy in a parking lot and you're a woman and he's walking towards you, yell at the guy, address him, visually look at him. Like just using your voice is so important, because so many of the nefarious people in society, they're cowards. They're wimps. They're looking for low-hanging victim fruit. So if you
100%.
can just verbally call somebody out, like most of these, bad people, they're pussies. They're gonna run away, they're gonna be scared. That'll end so many conflicts. And then just climbing up the scale, I don't have them on me. Normally, I have a Surefire flashlight in my pocket, a knife. Like those are just additional tools. Like you can blind somebody with a flashlight. I carry a knife because I just cut cardboard boxes all day, but like a knife is an additional tool for self-defense. If you're going to carry a knife for defense reasons, other than me eating sandwiches with mayo and cutting cardboard, if you're going to carry a knife for defense, you should train with it. Seek out an
Absolutely.
instructor, learn how to use a knife in defense, not just to cut cardboard like I do all day. The next step up from like a flashlight and a knife would be an actual firearm. And you don't want to use a firearm, honestly, ever in your life for self defense unless it's for your loved ones and your personal life. I'm not going to use a firearm for somebody else, a stranger. I'm going to do it for my loved ones, because, if you shoot somebody legally in the right in self defense, you're probably still going to jail. You're going to have massive bills mounting up from lawyers, and it's going to ruin your life, even if you were in complete right. Like you
100%.
you stopped like a violent rapist with a weapon themselves, like it's going to ruin your life. And
Yep.
like a bonus tool that people think that they could use would be like pepper spray or like hand to hand. And using these different tools, I think they're all so niche. Like I don't recommend anybody use like a taser like ever unless it's extremely niche situations, because whenever you introduce a tool to a situation, it's not my tool. When you introduce it to a situation, it's now our tool. If me and Gary get in a scrap and I pull out a knife, Gary's bigger than me and I'm sure he's significantly more training than me. He's probably just going to steal that tool against me, steal that tool from me and use it against me. So like you want to have space, you want to make sure that you're far away from an attacker. So like, I don't really like tasers because you have to be close enough to touch somebody. And just looking at all these different tools, people need to get trained on them individually, and no one it's appropriate to use all of them.
No, you're absolutely right. And this is one of the things I actually developed curriculum for and taught for the Department of State. So when people were going overseas, I taught them situational awareness and surveillance detection. And we talked about all of these things, right? And, you know, one of the things you touched on, and we always hear it, situational awareness, situational awareness. Situational awareness is important. There's no doubt about it. It's one of your first and best defenses that you can possibly have. But the other thing that you don't realize is how it can be, how important it can be to deter threats, right? So we always want to mitigate, deter, detect, and react to a threat, right? So we're always looking for ways to make ourselves look like a hard target. And, you know, there's been lots of studies done on why criminals choose their victims. And one of the main thing that comes up all time and time again is they're looking for that person that looks unaware. So just having the perception of awareness, that in itself has so much defense value that you know, you may not know what's going on. Like, you know, even I know when my kids, when they're walking around, when their head's not in a screen, even when they're walking around, they're like in La La Land. But at least if they look like they're paying attention, they're probably going to move to another target because that's what they're looking for, right? They're looking, just like he said, that low hanging fruit, the lowest common denominator. They want to have the most reward with the least amount of risk. That's what they're looking for, right? So when they're picking targets, you know, they're looking for the easiest target out there.
I'll say not Noah. We have been out so many times with
You're right.
Noah, and Noah will be like, I just saw that guy at that store. No, he's at this store. Hey, that guy is laying down in his car all weird, Mom.
And
Like,
then you're like, that's your dad.
but he, like, sometimes he'll point out stuff to me that I didn't notice, and I'm like, oh, good job.
No.
He's aware.
He does.
Jackson, on the other hand, he's in La La Land. Sorry, bud, if you're watching this, but you
He's
are
not
in La La
watching
Land.
He's not watching it at all. No, but
I really like. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I like engaging in like this conversation of force escalation because it just like holds a mirror to so many of us in the gun industry. And I'll pick on myself. Like I was raised hunting, like I've used firearms my whole life. My family has the gun shop, playing with guns into adulthood. So I'm like, oh, I'm John Wick before those movies came out. Like, I'm good. Like, that's the only tool I need. The fact of the matter is, it's like I could have got my ass rolled at any point in time in my life because you need to have so many other tools available to you. And I went to a training about 5 years ago where they did flashlight training. Rolled some jujitsu before I was trained jujitsu. Now I train jujitsu. We did scenario training in like a mock coffee shop. And it wasn't until then that like I had a mirror held to my face and it's like, okay, you can't just go around clapping people in the face with hollow points. Like there has to be other layers to this.
No,
So I really
100%.
appreciate that people are like listening to Jocko Willink and getting stuck on jujitsu. Or like train anything. Don't do karate, but train something. Like get into like some type of martial arts, like lift some weights, learn how to use tools. Like there's so many different things that needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that, you know, this industry does end up becoming very one dimensional and it shouldn't be. So, you know, one of the things I always talk about too that goes right along with this is if you are carrying a gun because you want to save a life, well, if you don't have medical training, you've put the cart so far in front of the horse, is not funny. Like you are training for the 1% while ignoring the 99%. If you don't have, you know, what we teach TCCC or TECC, it's civilian version of that. If you don't have tourniquet, you don't know how to use a tourniquet, you don't know what the acronym MARCH stands for and know how to apply it, you're wrong. And you're carrying a gun and you're trying to protect your family, you're just wrong. You're wrong as you possibly can be because, you know, there again, you are training for the 1%. You're worried and focused on the less than 1%, by the way, while you're ignoring the other 99%. And the same thing goes with what we're talking about. I mean, how much more likely are you to get into a physical altercation and have to defend yourself and not have the ability legally to use lethal force, and yet the only thing that we carry on us, the only thing that we train is with a firearm. And we just got to broaden our horizons a little bit. If you guys are really serious about protecting yourself, protecting your family, you need more than what you got. And a gun is an answer in less than 1% of those. It's the solution less than 1% of the time.
I completely agree. Like everybody thinks that a firearm is going to solve everything. And you're right. Like people ignore medical so much. And one of the reasons why I volunteered for my fire department, one of many reasons, was to learn medical. Everybody thinks like you get a gun, like you're going to go shoot a terrorist and you're going to be on the cover of the New York Times and be a hero. Like, no, you're going to probably own a gun for 50 years and never discharge it on another human. I pray to God that happens to everybody. But like, you're going to own a gun, train, have fun, do things, hopefully never use it against another human. In like a similar vein, like I joined my fire department. This might be a stretch of a metaphor, but you join a fire department because you think like you're going to go run into burning buildings and save people. 99% of the calls I do are lift assists. It's elderly, sadly overweight individuals that like they fall, they break a hip, they break bones, they break a knee. Lift assist, get them off the floor, throw them in an ambulance, get them to extended medical care at a hospital. So just learning medical is so much more important than having like a 1.5-second bill drill. Like it's good to shoot fast, it's good to shoot accurate, but if you don't know medical, it's so foolhardy. Like that's a very important aspect.
No, it really is. What were you going to say, Ben?
Yeah, I'm not trying to change the subject, but I was just pondering something that Adam said a minute ago, where he brought up the point that he knows that he's made the decision that he will only ever use his firearm to defend his loved ones and himself.
Yep.
And I think that that's something you need to think about beforehand and make some sort of decision.
You need to make a decision like that in your own mind.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
I'm not asking
Yeah,
for anybody to
yeah,
put their
no.
opinion out there. I'm just saying I think that that's something that you have to
Just
think
like-
about that people don't think about.
You need to weigh those things, right? And we see what even happened in the New York subway, right? So the gentleman, I can't think of his name right now, but this guy was threatening and attacking people in a subway, and the guy ended up, all he was trying to do was wrestle him and choke him out. And the guy ended up dying, and now that guy is being prosecuted and persecuted left and right. He's been calling him racist. His life will never be the same at a minimum. Hopefully he beats these charges. Hopefully they drop these charges. But the moment that you start stepping in for other people, you need to know what you're getting into at least. And whatever decision is right for you, make those decisions. There's been lots of folks that have stopped, active shooters, and which is one of the reasons that, the reality is that if everybody carried a gun, everybody was trained, and everybody was a responsible gun owner, active shooting couldn't even be a thing, right? It just wouldn't happen. There'd be too big of a deterrence. But those are definitely decisions that you got to make. And one of the things that Adam brought up as well, when I was traveling all over the world, I couldn't bring a firearm. But what I could bring, and I did bring everywhere I went, was a flashlight that I could use as a weapon. I could use it just like he said. I could use it as a signal if I needed to. Went to some pretty crazy spots where getting isolated and confined is a real thing in a building. You can use that as a weapon. I carried a knife everywhere I went. So there's some things that you can carry that you can use to defend yourself that not only give you that spectrum, right, but also you can actually have some sort of advantage, tactical advantage, other than just using your hands in those situations when you can't carry a gun, because we can't always carry guns everywhere we go. That's just a reality as well.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the more that we prepare ourselves, and the other part of this too is training, right? And Adam just came from some training that we did, where we did force on force scenario based training. Many people in these comments right now have been to different training that we've done, that we've put you in different scenarios where you had to make decisions with a gun in your hand. And people just fall apart. People that have been shooting guns a really long time, soon as this little guy right here starts running, all right, that brain up there just shuts down, and all we see is a target. We are not good at making decisions under stress, and most of us, other than oh, I've set up these targets. I know I need to shoot that target and I need to shoot this target. And I've created this scenario in my brain. But the moment that you get thrown into a blind scenario, like we often do in all of our courses, just about, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And it's just, it's not funny. I don't want to say it's funny, but it is interesting to see people that are very competent fall apart, you know, when it comes to things like using cover. Suddenly they're not using cover in this scenario. Shooting, making sure that we identify our target, know what's beyond it. We stop doing that. We're just shooting everything. You know, so we stop target discriminating real quick. And if the first time that you're ever thrown in a scenario is an active shooting event or one of these other things that we put ourselves into the hero status of in our mind, it's not going to go the way that you think it is. That's just a reality.
When we were warming up this evening for the podcast, we were talking a little bit about force on force. And I love it having no military background because you get to work with the element of working against another human, and you can fire at each other and we all get to go home at the end of the day. It's phenomenal training, and people don't react the way they think they would in their mind or the way that they thought they would expect. And it exposes your own weaknesses. It exposes other people's. I enjoy it tremendously. And something I talked to my wife about, she trains Muay Thai, she does jujitsu. I'm getting her into firearms, which has been fun. And she's a women's only self-defense instructor. She tries to do like miniature women's only self-defense classes, and it's hand-to-hand work. So kicking, striking, pommel, elbows, stuff like that.
Wow.
And a topic that we've talked about for like human to human interaction is that everybody thinks that there's always a fight or flight response whenever we're put into like a high stress, violent, or dangerous situation. But it's curious that we only talk fight or flight, because when we examine
That's
animals,
also a spectrum, by the way.
yep, when we talk about animals, they discuss three potential outcomes. There's fight, flight, or freeze. You always see the deer in the headlights, or right when you're driving by a deer in the ditch, he runs out in the road and just stands in the middle in front of your vehicle. Whenever people psychologically assess animals in the way that they survive in a hierarchy of things, there's fight, flight, or freeze. And I don't know why, but when people study humans and the way that we interact with high stress situations, they want to talk fight or flight. There is a third response for humans too. It's freeze.
Yeah.
So if you're put in a force on force situation, you've never had a gun pointed at you, even though live bullets aren't coming at you, sim rounds are coming out, you may freeze.
Yep.
And you need to know that like if you're put in a high stress situation like that, that's a potential outcome for you that you need to inoculate yourself to stress, maybe do more force on force and get used to this so you can act. Because even if you make a bad decision, but you commit to it and act, that's better than indecision. Indecision will get you killed. A bad decision might get you hurt, but hopefully you can recover from it.
Yeah, you know, I think it goes back to what you're saying too. A lot of times, this fight, flight, or freeze, freeze is that momentary. Number one, you're trying to process what's going on. I think is for a lot of people. Some people definitely just freak out and don't know what to do. They can't get their feet moving. They can't make any decision. There's that. But then there's those folks that they kind of know what to do. They have some tools, they have some training, but they're stuck in this momentary pause that, you know, in a life or death situation seems forever. And obviously it could cost them their life, where they are trying to process, right? We've gone beyond our normalcy bias, what we're used to seeing or what we're expecting to see, even in these fight scenarios. One thing that you were talking about that I thought was that immediately came to my mind, our last CQB course, we were doing some force on force training, and one of the guys came through the door, and I was standing right there, and it was the first time that they were coming through where they would be met with sims. And so I wasn't going to go, you know, just balls to the walls on him. I was going to give him the opportunity to shoot me first, but he came in and he saw me there, and he didn't do anything, and he stopped in the door, and then I just sat there. It was literally like a second and a half, 2 seconds, and finally I was just like, I squeezed the trigger and hit him in the chest. I'm like, Jonathan, what are you doing, bro? He's like, I've never actually pulled a trigger on a human before. He's like, you know, and this is a guy that's come to, like, I don't know, all of our training. It was the first time he'd been to CQB, but he'd been to handgun level 1 and 2, probably 3, been to concealed carry courses, been to our tactical carbine courses. But this was the first time that he was ever faced with actually pulling, even though it's a sim gun. It just shows you the moment that we step a little bit outside of our bubble, how discombobulating it can be to our brain parts. Like, we get confused a lot easier than we think we can. That's a word, discombobulated, medical term. Medical term. Adam knows. He's a medical official.
Nothing. I better not say it.
What? No, what?
I was just thinking that's your daily state of being. I'm just kidding.
That's real cute.
I'm
That's real
kidding.
cute. I think I won't
That
beat
is
you on
really
camera.
important, though. What you talked about is really important. Like, you and I in Summer, we're not advocating that you should point guns at people, but in a safe environment, force on force, it is important to like have one point at you, be able to point one at another human, and like understand and rationalize in your own mind, I can do this. Like, if met with extreme violence, like I could pull a trigger on another human being,
But
even if you're in a
not
role
on a real
playing
gun is what
scenario.
we're saying.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
This
And
has to be in like a safe training environment, force on force. But like the individual in your course, you said, John,
Yep.
probably a top-notch good gun guy,
Yeah.
but he had never pointed a gun at another human, and that would have been his moment of indecision that could have been fatal for him.
Absolutely, it could have. And that wasn't even, imagine how much more extreme that would feel if you knew it wasn't a training environment. How much longer would you have paused? How much more conflicted would you feel? Those are things that you're going to experience if you haven't trained through them. And the problem is that we haven't done these mental exercises enough, or we haven't done the physical exercise of force on force and things like that. But the other part of that is when it comes to fight, flight, or freeze, a lot of times you have incidents happen. And, you know, with my old job, we did a lot of after action reviews of different terrorist attacks, and we looked at what civilians did. We looked at what special agents did of all different branches that were, you know, from the military, you know, at embassies and consulates and places like that the state has control of. You have military personnel there, you have Marine security guards, you have special agents there, State Department diplomatic security agents there, and then you have higher trained security agents that are kind of like SWAT. But we've looked at all these different things that they've done and haven't done. And the fact of the matter is like when something does happen and you're not expecting it, and you know, it really does mess with your mind, and you really got to snap through that. And the point here is that, you know, one of the things that I always do is, and I'm sure many people out there do too, is, you know, I'm always playing these scenarios in my mind. I'm always looking for, okay, where's cover at? You know, and that helps you stay alert because you're not going to get stuck in that OODA loop, right? Where we don't know what to do. We don't know what to make a decision, and we're not caught mentally unaware. Like, you know, when you go to a restaurant, it's important. I always like find that back corner. I know where I want to be facing the door. I make sure my family's in front of me so I have ballistic cover. But, you know, you got to know exactly where to go. But those are all things you got to consider, right?
Absolutely. Like the restaurant scenario is like one that's talked about a lot, but it's really important because just apply it to everything. Like if you're in a shopping mall, you probably don't want to walk through the middle of the food court. Work the edges. If you're going to be in a restaurant and be seated, you probably want to have your face to the door, being able to see everybody else that's coming in near an exit. Like these are simple principles, apply them to everything.
Yeah. And other than, you know, again, I think that the greatest advantage that playing those little scenarios through our mind, that just gives you that mental alertness that most people don't have. And I think that's the edge that you need. And, you know, another thing that goes along with that, we're talking about self-defense and all these things. You know, we do advanced concealed carry courses. And like, for instance, I just did some private training where I put a couple through some advanced concealed carry course training and scenarios. And, you know, one of the things that we do is like, you know, actually draw from seated position. You know how many people have no idea how to draw from seated position? You put them in that, and suddenly they realize like where their holster is doesn't make sense anymore. They've never had to draw their gun safely while they're seated and or a table's in front of them, or draw from concealed while they're seated, and now they have to address the targets to their left, to their right, to their front. All these things that seem insignificant that start adding up real quick when you're under stress and trying to figure these things out. That is not the time to figure them out. You know, you should be putting yourself, come to our training, go to somebody else that has competent training that is going to challenge you that way. Make sure that they are not just doing these 3 or 4 little block of instructions that are PowerPoint where you get your concealed carry permit. Folks, that is not enough. If you're going to carry a gun all the time, you need to be training with it all the time. And, it's the same drum I beat every week. I don't know what to
You know,
tell you.
honestly, I get phone calls from people that are just looking to check the box and get that
Yep.
that concealed carry license, and they're like, oh, well, I can go over here for $50 and do this, and I'm like, there's some people you can explain the concept to of actual real training,
Yeah.
versus checking the block, and there's some people that they just want to spend the $50, and there's nothing you can do to convince them that they should do better.
Yep. If you want to spend $50 on training, don't go to Paramount because it's not going to happen.
No.
Not going to
I
happen.
like what you said about drawing from a seated position, just like different dynamic ways of shooting,
Yeah.
because that's what I try to do with my wife, and that's my favorite way of shooting, honestly.
Sure.
When I came home from the event that you hosted, my wife asked me how to go, and I said, well, in my mind, maybe you'll tell me I'm way off base and I sucked. I told her in my mind I thought it went great because everything that they had us do over at Paramount is what her and I do at home. I play like range games with her. I'm like, okay, we're gonna load a magazine, and I want you to walk towards the target and shoot. I want you to walk away from the target and shoot. Move side to side. We play a game like that's called peekaboo, where I tell her like I want to shoot
Whoa,
a couple
this
rounds
is
at
a kid
steel.
show. This is a family show.
I tell her I want you to shoot a couple rounds on steel, hide behind a tree like it's cover, pop
Yep.
back out, shoot some more, hide again, reload, shoot again. So it's like we're trying to make practice fun, like dynamic, move around. And then when we come to like higher tier, higher quality course like yours, where it's like you're shooting on the move, you're doing dynamic things, that didn't feel weird for me at all because those are range games I'm playing with my wife.
Yeah.
And that's way more applicable than static bullseye NRA dry shooting at 25 yards. There's a place for like slow, dry accuracy.
Sure.
But honestly, in the real world, when we're out and about and we have to do dynamic things, you're never going to get a stationary target and you're going to be able to shoot stationary at them.
100%. And honestly, like we talk about, I know I hit it a little bit in the training that we did, but I always cover the Paramount, the tactics when it comes to clear shot cover, clear shot moving, clear shot static. That's what we want. The tactical priorities, you want a clear shot and cover. You want if you don't have cover, your next best option is clear shot moving. And if you want to eat a bullet and the only shot you can take is clear shot static, that's what you got to do. And that's the choice you make. But again, those are the things that we should be training on. And especially, folks, I can't hit it enough. If you want to survive a gunfight, you better be shooting from cover. You also have to make sure that you have a clear shot. You got to be able to identify your target, know what's beyond it. And everybody says that all the time, but I can tell you, 9% of you that I would put into a scenario would throw that out the window the moment that you actually had to do some target identification and do some target discrimination, because it happens every course. And those are things that we need to be focused on. And we've went right back into focusing on firearms training, and that is important if you're going to carry a gun. But, just like we were talking about at the beginning of this, you got to have more tools than just a firearm. One of the things I can't stress enough, and I know clearly Adam is a big proponent of this, but, one of your best survival tools is keeping yourself in shape. Get out there, do some running. If you're not in good shape now, that's something that you have
What
the
are you
rest of
saying
us.
to me, Gary?
And I won't go there. All right. But the reality is that that's something that you could be doing in addition, and it's free. Start walking, start doing some jogging, do some cardio, start lifting some weights, do all those things and incorporate them slowly if they're not already a part of your life. And, of course, you can't outrun a bad diet. Eating good is important too. But those are all things that we need to make sure that we're incorporating as well.
Yep.
Completely agree. Like a lot of people think that like their firearm is going to save them. They can be fat. Like they know how to use a tourniquet, so like they can be fat. And I'm here to fat shame you. Like you need to go work out. You need to put in the work. You need to put in the hours. I'm not
Yep.
saying like you need to go be a bodybuilder and have a six pack, whatever. Like you should be able to run at length, like run for a while. You should be able to lift your own body weight, if not quite a bit more. Like, these are important things, not just to defend yourself, but to have a healthy life. Like,
Yeah.
nobody wants to die when they're 50. That's so short-lived. We all want to live
Well,
to be 80 and have rad stories to tell.
Well, that's a good point. Is we do a lot of these things. For those of us who are family men, we do a lot of these things because we see it as our job to protect our family, and that's true. But guess what? If you're not around, you can't protect your family. If you're not mobile, you can't protect your family. So, and not only that, if we get to a point prematurely to where we can't take care of ourselves, we're definitely not protecting our family. So those are all things that holistically we need to take a better approach at.
Well, another way to look at it too is Adam brought up, hey, if I'm carrying a firearm, I can be fat. Hey, if I know how to use a tourniquet, I can be fat. But when you think about it, carrying a firearm becomes way more difficult when you're fat. You can't carry in the same ways. You can't carry in the same position. You have a harder time drawing from
100%.
underneath clothing. And then the other thing is I mean, even tourniquets, if you're so obese, maybe a tourniquet's not going to even work on you.
It could be a challenge. There's no doubt about it.
So
yeah,
those are
next thing you know, you got to strap 2 tourniquets on you. But tourniquets
Mend
will
them
always, a tourniquet on the neck will always fit, and it always stops the bleeding every time. There's no doubt about it.
So,
I think
just
that-
other things to think about.
I think that double tourniquet technique, that's an advanced course.
It is an advanced course.
Yeah.
Usually we're using that as a thoracic, but yeah, no, I'll tell you, there's it is such a great topic, and if you haven't written on that, Adam, you probably should. That should be your next article. And anytime you want to write anything and throw it over on our I can't ever think of the
Patreon?
no
Substack. Yes.
Our Substack. You let me know. You can write any article you want, and I'll put it on Substack for you. But I do think that is something that we need to start focusing on more, start producing more content on. And I think it's the responsible thing to do. But I get very caught up in, guns, because that's what people want to see. That's what they want to hear. And I get it. But we also have a responsibility to make sure that we're guiding your mind and principles in the right directions, and not just being able to, point a gun at a target and hit what you're aiming at.
Yeah. Something I was thinking about a minute ago, it's almost like sometimes situational awareness comes at a cost, because no longer can I go to a shopping mall and enjoy myself. I'm too worried about what's going on, who's there, what are they up to.
Yeah.
Even when we go to the movies, I'm like, all right, if somebody comes in, this is what I need to do, and like, how am I going to get out of here? And I just can't even relax and enjoy it. So, the situational awareness, for me, and it's probably a good thing I don't need to go to the mall and spend money, but,
Well,
but these are all things I think about. And then
one of the things when we taught surveillance detection, which really was situational awareness, one of the exercises that we did with Department of State folks, we actually took them to Tyson's Corner Mall in DC, and we would have surveillance personnel doing surveillance on them. And for the first time in their life, now they're looking for suspicious behavior. And a lot of these folks, for those of you that don't know State Department personnel, most of these are straight from Berkeley, right? They're very
Berkeley, California.
Berkeley, yeah. They're very liberal. Most of them they're very naive. I'll put it that way. Most of them are good people, all those good things. But the point is it's so funny, because what we would do is we would have these surveillance personnel that they were trying to identify, and we'd have our role players do overtly suspicious activities. And it was crazy. And then we'd get back, and then they'd actually fill out a surveillance detection report. So they would try to find these people, then they would actually, describe them. And then we would actually bring in the role players, right? So it was like, okay, you said this person was 6'8" or whatever it was, and they're actually 5'4". But the thing that we heard every single exercise, and we used to do this every week, was like, oh my God, I saw so much weird stuff. Because it's the first time that they've ever paid attention to anything.
Yeah.
And then the other thing they would say is like, it's like a 2-hour exercise. They're like, I am exhausted
from
because
looking.
You were just taking in all this information for the first time ever. And to your point, the more that you practice these things, the easier it becomes. You know,
It doesn't necessarily feel hard like in a mall situation. It's just to the point where I'm like, it's not worth it to me.
yeah.
To put myself in that situation where maybe something bad might happen. I mean, let's face it, how many mall shootings have there
Well,
been?
and,
You
and
know,
things have, and we were just talking about that yesterday. Like why would you go to a mall anymore?
Yeah.
Number one, all the malls are like crappy. Number
Yeah.
two, why would you do that? And number three, especially in this area, in the DC area, like there's
all suspicious
so
people.
much. That's all that's hanging out there. Like
Yeah.
it's a criminal gathering place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I completely believe that. Where I'm from in St. Joseph slash St. Cloud, Minnesota, about 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago, we had um, a foreign individual, not trying to make this a race war, a foreign individual come into our mall with a kitchen knife, running around trying to stab people, and an
What?
off-duty officer had to put that individual down. So, like, very close to my home, like where I live,
Right.
like we had a mall incident.
Right.
So it's like I have the same sentiment as you. I have zero ambition to go to a mall. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
need something, I'll go find a farm and fleet store or buy it on the internet.
Yep.
Yeah. Like you know, I was sitting around thinking about this before I brought it up to Summer. I was like, it's almost the idea of like walking around a 300,000 square foot place, going from store
You
to store
know,
to look at things
I
is
still
almost
enjoy
ridiculous to me that that was ever a thing.
I still enjoy going to see things in person. Like, you know, going to an individual store. Like
That's a weakness.
if somebody came to Paramount to look at stuff and then purchase it, you know, I still
I know.
enjoy that. But yeah, being in a situation where there's a massive amount of people gathered, I'm just like, nope.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Gets a little freak out there, without a
Yeah.
doubt. Well, the other topic, and again, feel free to throw anything else in there that you want, Adam. But the other thing that I would like to talk to you about, we touched on this a little bit with Sean last week, but I'm curious from the inside of the 2A content or media world, like what has changed in the last few years? What is your perception of where that's going? And I just kind of want kind of your own personal insight and thoughts on some of the 2A media that we're seeing in today's world.
The major trends that I think that are occurring is for the first time in my short life, I'm not that old, we're seeing less infighting within the media and within the firearms community, which makes me overwhelmingly happy.
Yeah.
Because before we would eat our own, like if you shoot a Glock, I hate you. If you shoot a FN, I hate you. Like there's
You
so
shoot
much
9 mm?
infighting. Yeah. If you shoot 40 cal, like there's so much infighting and it was horrible. Like we're eating our own and the opposition to us, like the anti-firearm people, are so unified and
They
together,
are.
we can't afford to have infighting. Like we need to get along and like understand that like we're one collective of like individuals that enjoy these tools, this recreation, this sport. Like we need to support each other. So I think absolutely in the last probably 1 to 2 years, maybe longer, probably the start of COVID, because there's a pretty hard line in the world about where you stood about COVID. So probably
Yep.
the last 3 to 4 years, there's significantly less bickering, infighting within the firearms community. Like we're all supporting each other from a media standpoint, from like a camaraderie, like one man to another man, one woman to another woman, like within the firearm industry, we're supporting each other, which I think is phenomenal. And like the other thing that I think we're seeing is in the mid 20 teens, I would say from like 2008 to maybe 2018, so before COVID, there is almost like a slowdown of what I would call like leaps and bounds in improvement of technology within the firearm industry. Like we went through 8 years of an Obama presidency, and there's so many shortages for ammunition and just products in general that there's less innovation. Like you have all these firearm companies that are making colossal profits because of what was occurring politically. Like you couldn't find an AR-15 or like 5.56 or green tip to save your life for like a decade, it felt like.
Right.
So like I felt like there's less innovation. And now that like COVID in these last 5, 6 years, there's been some semblance of normalcy, like inventories returning, prices are coming down a tiny bit. There's starting to be a lot more innovation from the manufacturing side, whether it's Optics, we're seeing just this huge affinity to optics for handguns I'm speaking to. So you have all these little micro red dots on, your XYZ favorite handgun, Vortex, Holosun, Trijicon, Miopa, like just all kinds of things. You're also seeing thermal night vision,
Yeah.
like whether you're a guy trying to find lost cattle because you're a rancher, or you're a coyote hunter, or you're trying to go murk bad guys. Like there's such an abundance of like night vision, thermal, and it's improving and the cost is coming down. So I just think it's great that as of late, like technology is improving, we're seeing more players in the market, and we're getting along in the industry.
No,
Yeah.
I think you're right. And I do think, touching back to on the innovation side, we're definitely seeing a lot more. Just a couple years ago, I would have never thought of running a hollow sun on any of my guns or anything like that. Anything that was going to be using for self defense. But, some of these smaller companies have come a long way as far as upping their quality and being able to provide really good quality products at really affordable prices that are competing at with and or beating some of these bigger names. I think Trijicon and some of these other companies for a long time just got complacent. They had their RMR, they're running that. Well, now you have, you can get a Holosun EPS with a multiple reticle system, enclosed emitter that is probably just as tough or just as durable, and you get a side loading battery as opposed to you got to take your entire sight off. So I definitely think there was definitely a lot more innovation, a lot new companies coming on board and giving some of the industry leaders a run for their money and pushing them to innovate too, because we see Trijicon and many of these other optic companies, and really we can name any big company in the industry, in so many different facets of the firearm industry, being pushed to stay relevant, because I think so many people out there are seeing, hey, there's a lot more choices. Same thing goes with scopes, long range optics. I've done the review on the Arkin. Is an Arkin a night force? No, but it's pretty damn good for $500. And I love seeing that. And that's what this industry has always needed, is a lot of competition. The more competition, the better off we're going to be as consumers. No doubt about it.
I completely agree. I have a tattoo on my back and it's rising tide raises all ships. Like when we all do better, we all do better. Like more competition is a good thing. It's only going to bring us all up.
Yeah.
100%. Yep. Yeah. When it comes to the other thing that I'm seeing too, in just from my own perception outside looking in from media standpoint, is whether we're talking about print or we're talking about blogs or even talking about video content on YouTube or whatever else, is I do see a lot more, and they're not always have like military or law enforcement background, but I see a lot more actual gun guys and gun guys or girls out there producing content. What I did see a lot in I think especially the 90s, early 2000s and stuff like that, because I've met some of the kind of old school writers and stuff like that. And I don't want to say, I don't want to start a division back into, I don't want to start fracturing our community again, but there was this almost FUD mentality that kind of ran that the publications and what was being put out. And you didn't see new relevant information. I think that's completely changed. And a lot of that I do think has to do with, the global war on terror. We got a lot of knowledgeable folks coming back. And I think
I
even,
think it also has to do with the way media has evolved.
100% it does. Yeah.
It's not just print anymore. It's now a lot of things, and some of the older, no offense to anyone out there, and no offense to print. I love a good magazine, but a lot of the older community didn't really migrate to the newer ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And the other, I think part of that too was, that was highly controlled. A lot of that was highly controlled by the NRA in one form or another. And for good, bad, or indifferent, I think it's bad overall. But I think the reasons that it happened are justified, is that the NRA lost its pull among the 2A community.
and that's another thing. I think a lot of younger folks in the gun community perhaps see the NRA as a organization for the older generation.
I don't think they saw them as representing them.
Yeah.
You know, that was for a different generation, and they weren't quite ready
That's
to.
what I just said, Gary.
I'm sorry. I just thought I would repeat what you said and say
make it sound better?
It sounded better, and then take credit for what you said. That's what I do. That's how I roll.
Yep. I think we had a couple of questions if we're
Let's see. Jason Sponsor, what does a gun trust do for you?
lots.
I'm the only one in the house that shoots or uses cans.
Doesn't matter.
So it's probably especially important for you. But I'm going to reach out to Jim Willie. He's been on our podcast before. He's a lawyer. He's the gun trust guru. Look, if you guys are looking to do a very effective, good, high quality, specific to your state gun trust, with the addition of somebody that will actually answer the phone and answer your questions, I highly recommend Gun Trust Guru. And with that being said, I'll just say this right now. We do have an affiliate type thing with him. Nothing that we ever asked for, nothing that I even knew about. Just every now and then we'd get a $20 check from Gun Trust Guru, and it was because they were like, oh, we never even talked to Jim about this, but he was like, hey, you guys referred to this person. They told us that you. So if you want to do that, that's great. If you don't, I don't really care. But
That's not why we're referring them.
Yeah.
The referrals came first, and then we just happened to get a check in the mail. And we're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and it was because we had him on. I did a lot of research. We both did a lot of research on different gun trusts. And this is before we even started. I think it's probably before we even had our class.
It was before we were at FFL.
FFL.
Yeah.
And I was really looking into that, and I wanted some good information, wanted to be able to put out good information. So, we had Jim Willie on, and we need to have him on again soon because I don't want to steer you guys wrong or say the wrong things.
But I will say very quickly, and I've looked this up numerous times on legal website, lawyer websites. Jason, one very short point to the advantage of a trust when you're the only person that uses the can. If, say, you store all your guns in a safe and your wife knows the combo for obvious reasons, she needs to be able to defend herself or she needs access to whatever's in the safe, and you happen to store that suppressor in the safe as well, then if she knows the code to that, she now has what's called constructive possession of that suppressor, which is an accidental felony. If they want to prosecute it.
Yeah, and they probably will. So the other things that we get into, and Adam, you can jump in here at any time too, because again, I know you've been doing this a long time. If you are incapacitated or killed or die or whatever else, you have to figure out what is going on with your suppressors. And a gun trust, you can put them in a will. That'll give you some legal protections there. But having a gun trust is one of the easiest and safest ways to do that, as well as protect your family from being prosecuted or just going afoul of the law. That's really what it comes down to. Adam, what's your thoughts on that?
You guys hit on a lot of good points. I'll just add a couple things. If somebody wants to buy a silencer as an individual, you can let friends shoot your silencer, but you have to be standing there over them. Like the term that the ATF wants to throw at us is called maintain dominion at all times. So if like Gary has a rad suppressor and we're both at the range together, he can let me shoot it if he's standing there watching me. If he goes to the bathroom, that's immediately a problem. So he's no longer maintaining dominion, he's not standing there. So with like a trust, you can name friends, family members, whoever. So then if they're a named individual on the trust, Gary doesn't have to be present. All these people, all of his friends, family, whoever, they can shoot that silencer when he's not around. And then speaking to like what happens if the head of a trust, the trustor, were to pass away, the trust gives you legal protections where you can pass it on to other people. Like there's a place for it to go when you're no longer here. If you're an individual, what the ATF and NFA wants you to do, haven't heard of anybody.
I muted him for a second until he gets his connection back.
Well, I don't know if it's his connection or ours, but yeah.
Can everyone else hear him?
Yeah, you can unmute him now. He's good.
There he is.
Sorry, Adam. It was breaking up, and I don't know if it's our connection or yours. We're out here on. We're using the old Starlink up here and making sure my kids aren't running down my internet and
Elon's
ruining my
failing
life.
us right now.
That's right. No, but
No
again,
worries.
what he was talking talking about is making sure that you have, you know, dominion over that so that you have control of that. Because if you are letting somebody else use it and you're not around,
If you're not like right there with them.
you're not right there with them, you both can get in trouble.
Yep.
Yeah, and just like you said, you know, again, if and here's one of the things, folks, and again, I don't want to get too deep into this because I want to have Jim Willie on it and make sure that he speaks to this much more with a better legal understanding. But one thing that's nice about the trust that they create, if I need to take somebody off that trust or put them on there, I can do that
Very easily.
very easily. So I don't know, not that I would do this, but you know, a hypothetical is if, let's say, you know, somebody wanted to get a suppressor, but they didn't want to have to get 15 people on their trust background checks. You could hypothetically take everybody off that trust, go get that suppressor, run that in there, and then put them back on there. I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm just saying that there's nothing illegal about that. And when you do these one-shot gun trusts or you do the individual trust, those things are not possible. And while those are very expeditious and easy to do, I think in the long term, it starts adding a lot of more complications where you're going to look back and be like, man, I wish I had all of these suppressors on one trust, as opposed to,
50 trusts.
50 or not 50 trusts, or either 50 trusts or just 10 different suppressors that are owned by one person. Because now if I want to put those in a trust and leave those to somebody else, I literally have to transfer every single one of those. That's another $200 if I want to put that into a trust at that point.
Yep.
So those are all considerations. And I think my recommendation, and I think just about anybody out there will tell you, if you're going to own class 3 items, you need to do a trust. And even if you got to wait 120 days, bite the bullet, you'll be glad you did. And that wait time, you know how wait times are, man.
Yeah.
They go by quicker than you think.
We had a customer that came in the shop today and purchased his suppressor from us, and he had come in a couple of weeks ago and talked to me about getting a trust, and he ended up getting one through Jim. And he's like, oh, I don't want to have to wait, but I understand it'll be worth it. So he ended up doing the trust route.
And do me a favor, Sean, type in the bottom there, guntrustguru.com. You guys can go check it out. You know, if you're interested, and I do not expect you guys to even refer me or anything like that. I don't care. What I'm telling you is that out of all the things that I've looked at, and I've done a lot of research on this, and I know this guy personally, he is a real,
There he is, Kurt.
yeah. But you know, the Gun Trust Guru, he is an estate lawyer. That's where, and he was one of the first guys that started making these gun trusts. And one of the other thing that's really important is that when you make that gun trust, you go through this, just a bunch of drop down menus, simple questions. It's literally less than 5 minutes, and it's state specific because there's a lot of different state rules that you need to be aware of that a lot of these other one-shot trusts or these other gun trusts that you can get don't account for, and his does. And he and I have spent a long time talking about the different things that he's put in place so that it's going to cover you for whatever state you're in. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Jeff Hahn says, it was my understanding that a trust helps when I die. Nothing helps when you die, Jeff. I will miss you no matter what. If I've listed my wife and kids on the trust, it makes it easier for them. Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
So if you, let's say you got 10 suppressors, they're all yours, and you don't have them in a will, and you don't have them in a trust, when you die, the ATF is coming to get them.
Or they can go through probate, can't they? If you have a will,
If you have a will.
they can go through probate.
Yeah.
But I think you have to pay to transfer them again.
Yes.
I'm not sure on that. Well, there you go. Adam said yes.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up paying another tax stamp,
Yeah.
essentially.
For
We
each-
don't want to give the ATF any more money than we need
They
to.
really don't need more money. I'm going to wait till the new Thunder Beast suppressors come out, but when I buy a new can, I will do it under a trust. Can I put a suppressor I already own in that trust?
You can, but you'll have to do a new tax stamp and pay the $200 again.
You will have to transfer that, bud.
Yeah.
And
But the one good thing about that is, since you already have a stamp under your individual name for that suppressor, it remains in your possession and you're able to use it as you have been doing until the new tax stamp comes in for your trust.
That's correct.
Yep.
Oh, and by the way, folks, if you're waiting for the new Thunder Beast arms, RR suppressors, don't. You can go on our website. You can buy them, pre-order them. We can put you on a payment plan. And, you know, by the time they're ready to come in, we have a ton of them on order.
We do.
A
Jesus.
lot of money.
I got to sell a kidney to pay the bill.
Summer and I were talking about that today. We have like 12 orders, and most of these are like cans each in each order, but 12 orders in the queue.
Why are you trying to stress me out?
4 suppressors. Because I like what you're a lot sexier to me when you're stressed. I don't know why.
Man, that should be very appealing every day then. No, I'm just saying. No, there's a lot of suppressors on order, but I'll tell you what, they are selling like hotcakes right now.
Yep. Keep buying them, folks.
Yep.
What else, Adam? What else is going on out there in the 2A world?
Oh, that's a great question, but I don't know that we're a lawyer enough to answer that.
I'll let Adam handle that one.
Can having official training come back to haunt you in court if you have to use it? It depends what the training teaches you. But, like, if you have an instructor that's teaching you like dangerous tactics,
Sure.
then I would say yeah. But like if you're getting sound self-defense training, like you're looking to not use force until the very last minute when it's, the last possible resort that you have to, like you should be fine. What you normally see is the one thing I will recommend, and this isn't training, this is just if you end up in court for a legal self-defense reason, your carry gun should be super boring, like a stock block, a stock
It's a good
sig,
point.
maybe a
Yep.
red dot or flashlight. Don't get the Gucci gold crap. Don't, put, Mulum Lab on the side. Don't put come take 'em. None of that crap. You want a super boring gun because the prosecuting attorney on the other side that's trying to put you, the legal gun owner, in jail is going to say that you modified your firearm to make it more deadly. You
Yeah.
changed your gun to murder somebody.
Right.
So we're completely off base of the question already, but if you do end up in court, you should be using ammunition that law enforcement uses because then you have like an alibi to like why you selected your ammo. And you should have a near stock firearm, like minus maybe a flashlight or a red dot, just near stock. So like you have a reason that you can state to the court why you chose this firearm. Like this is a manufacturer firearm. I didn't modify it for malicious intent.
Right.
No, I agree with all of that. It's a matter of perception, right? You definitely want to be able to explain your gun. When you're carrying a gun, imagine that that gun is going to get shown to a jury. That's how I think about it. And how's that going to make you look? And then, again, when it comes to training too, and I've heard this a lot, and it does. Even right there, I was like, no. Adam's like, yes, if it's a bad training. And I'm just assuming right off the top that we're talking about competent training. You should be seeking out competent training. I know a great training company, Paramount Tactical Solutions. We're going to give you competent training. But all joking aside, you should be able to go to talk to a jury and be like, look, I take carrying a firearm seriously. I've always thought this was a high level of responsibility. And I just wanted to make sure that I was able to operate that gun safely, securely. And I think that's going to give you, God forbid that you ever run into that situation, but that is a reasonable argument, right? That most reasonable people are going to say, hey, you know what? That makes perfect sense to me. So that's the reasonable man test on that. The other thing that this is kind of a sidetrack issue. I think it kind of came up earlier. I was thinking about it earlier actually is, one of the things that I'm doing a little bit of research now, it's kind of been something I've been looking more into is different, insurance programs, right? The USCCA, all these other ones. I would tell you folks, the more I look into those, the less appealing they are to me.
To me, it's always seemed like this Band-Aid that they want to try to
It's
make
more
appealing.
Sure. And in some cases it might make sense, but there's some other options out there, by the way. One of the problems that you're going to run into with those that I've been doing some research on these because I was really looking at possibly affiliating ourselves with USCCA and some other ones out there. The problem is that if you are charged with a crime, they could potentially, the insurance will not charge, insurance by law cannot cover you if you're charged with a crime. So there's some things that get weird with that.
Isn't that their whole premise, though? That if you are in a self-defense situation, that their
Yes.
insurance kicks in?
Yeah, and there was just
And they have
some
lawyers
recent-
on call?
That's the kind of thing. But again, I just recently ran into this where, number one, they were saying this person was intentionally trying to kill somebody. Actually looking into it, it looked like they were coming up with a good reason to not cover this.
Yeah. Which
So
insurance always
anyways,
does.
what I'm saying with that, and this is, again, I'm way off track, but the point being is if you're going to do something like that, make sure you do some research on those. And that's something that I'm going to do some more content on and have some more research, because there are other options. So anyways, that's my squirrel brain kicking in.
I agree with you on the insurance thing, because I've looked at a very surface level,
Yeah.
and none of it looked like as authoritative or as, reliable. I'm failing to find the correct word, but like as reliable as like you'd want it to be. It
Yeah.
seems
Right.
like more snake oil salesman than anything. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say USCCA is bad or Law
Nope.
Shield or any of these companies. I'm not disparaging them. I'm
Nope,
just saying I
100%.
personally need significantly more research before I buy it.
Yeah, and there's some other options out there that are reasonably affordable, like prepaid legal services and things like that. But what I can tell you is there are definitely cases out there where people have been charged with a crime and USCCA has dropped them completely. And maybe that was, again, I looked at one specific case, didn't seem reasonable to me. I actually saw the video of the shooting, didn't seem reasonable to me. As far as this person looked like it was a woman, by the way, she was defending herself, looked very clear cut to me. USCCA and the prosecuting attorney saw it differently. Maybe there's more extenuating circumstances. I looked into it pretty deeply. The point being is that we would expect, my expectations of that, and I guess this is where I'm going with this, would be like, hey, I get into this shooting, I have USCCA. They're now saying that I'm a criminal. USCCA is going to pay for my lawyer, pay for my bills, do all these things. And actually, they have the option not to. That's what I'm talking about. So that's something that you need to look into if you're going to go that route. But there are other options out there, and I'm going to do a little more research and do some more content on it. I think that's actually really important, because there are a lot of people out there making money on these things. And again, not saying they're bad. I agree with Adam. I've also heard a lot of good stories on that side. So, I just think we all need to be more informed on those options, because what I thought it was and what it actually is seems to be very different.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Johnson down there says, throw that up there. Brother-in-law has a pistol still sitting in Fulton County evidence locker 18 years later. Well, it's now an antique. I guess that's the
They'll mail it back to you. It's a curio and relic now. They'll mail it back to you.
That's crazy to think that something 18 years ago, that's only what, 2000?
Let's be real.
2006?
It was sold
Oh
to
my
a
gosh.
cartel buyer like 15 years ago.
Right.
What really
Especially in
happened out
Fulton
there.
County.
Somebody will cross the border in Mexico. They'll bring it back.
Yeah.
We'll get it eventually. Adam, what was it? You being a writer and doing all the stuff that you do and owning a gun shop, you come across a lot of cool gear out there. So over the last year, what would you say a couple of items of gear? And I don't care what it is. It could be body armor, could be flashlights, could be night vision, could be, I don't know what it is. A gun. What's some of the best gear that you've seen over the last year or so?
I would say, so one thing that you don't know about me is everybody jokingly says within writing circles that I'm the Springfield guy. I'm the Springfield shill. I do write for Springfield Armory. I'm not a shill. They don't pay me other than for my articles.
Sure.
But I love Springfield crap. And I'm also like very critical of them. So like when they have bad stuff, like the Springfield XD, Grip Zone, when they do stupid crap, I call them out on it.
That's good.
All that being said, one of the coolest guns I think that has hit the market in the last year is the Echelon. And like
Someone was just telling me
it
about
doesn't
this.
do anything significantly better than other guns,
Sure.
other than it has all the bells and whistles you want. like the optics mounting system, their made up acronym vernacular VIS mounting system. It's super sweet because when you take the top cover off the cover plate,
Mm-hmm.
it just looks like Swiss cheese on your slide because it's a post system. There's like 12 holes, and then you just drop pegs in posts. So if you have a delta point, this peg pattern. You have an RMR, this peg pattern. So you have a plateless optic mounting system, and you can put 50 different red dots on it, 0 plates.
That's cool.
Mm.
I
Then
didn't
it
know that.
has, it's a chassis gun. So just
Mhm.
like SIG P320s, P365s are chassis guns, like
Right.
rip out your metal guts, shove it in different bodies or chassis. You can do that. It has all the extendo mags. So if you're a gamer, if you just want to shoot more rounds, you got extendo mags. It's got pick rails. So like I throw flashlights on everything if I can afford it.
100%.
So it's just a really good package. Like it's a $600 MSRP gun, and you don't have squirrely plates. It's a chassis. So I mean, you can get all these features in tons and tons of guns. They're not reinventing the wheel, but they're doing it like affordably through a household name brand. Like you could get all this stuff in a 2K gun, but not everybody wants to just dish out $2,000 on a handgun. You
Sure.
can buy this for $600 and it's better than a Glock. It's, you know, cheaper than higher end stuff. So the Springfield Armory Echelon, like it's not reinventing anything. It just does everything really well.
I'll have to check it out. No, that sounds interesting. I like the idea of, we definitely, number one, folks, you know, there's only, well, there's 4 to 5, 6, maybe 7 different plate patterns. If you're making a gun and you have an optics cut on there and you're not including plates or some sort of system like this that allows you to adapt any and or have all the plates for that gun, you're stupid. They don't cost that much. My God, folks,
But then you got to go chase down plates and all this.
it's such a pain,
yeah.
man. It's such a pain, and they'll have, you know, different patterns down here. So now I got to find this pattern to go with this gun and this optic. You know, you have the gun pattern and then you have the optic pattern. And you got to find a plate that interfaces with those two, and it's really stupid. I will say I did like the fact, and I think they're the only ones that I've seen do that, was that the PDPs, at least you can call them up and tell them, and they'll send you a plate, one free plate for
one
free.
free plate, yeah.
So
I will say
that
that
was
some
really
of
cool.
those special edition M&Ps we had, didn't they come with a bag of
The
plates?
special edition MPs, they did. So they
Yeah.
came with like literally 15. They were plastic, but they did the job. I didn't have any problem. I have like probably 2 of them at least with those plastic plates on there.
Yeah,
Didn't seem to have a problem, but they're not ideal for sure.
gotcha.
What other
Yeah.
what other gears out there, Adam? You've come across,
I do
reviewed.
I do like that body armor is becoming more commonplace. Like people
Yep.
are talking about it, thinking about it.
Mhm.
I own like 5 sets of body armor, not because I live in Chicago, but I like do weighted training. So like run around with a 30-pound vest if I'm walking my dogs, going for a run, or doing CrossFit junk. Like I have weighted plates. I have light body armor. So if I actually thought I was going to drive through Chicago, I can put on, you know, more light stuff. So I just like the abundance of body armor that's coming out. I have like Premier body armor, got like workout junk like 511. There's a new company called Warbird that just came out this year at SHOT Show. Shout out to Warbird. They're going to be doing like earmuffs, earbuds, shooting glasses, body armor, and I forget the origin story of Warbird, but it's father and son, I believe, or maybe it's just one guy who departed a body armor company, started his own gig, and everything that they've sent me, I haven't written articles yet, but I've got the touchy feely, got to play with their stuff, and everything looks super legit. And once again, it's quality stuff that's more affordable. It's like more competition, better gear, cheaper. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, man, I'm a big believer in that too. Again, I have some body armor out here. One thing that I've been meaning to invest more in are things like backpack plates. I love the idea that we can start using body armor and more accessible items. Like again, putting them in backpacks. We're not going to carry body armor and run a vest all the time. I like the idea of being able to, if I'm sending my kids to school, I can put them in backpack plate in there. that's very light. We're a dealer for Defender. They've been really innovative on some of their body armor, super thin, super effective. But there's a lot of them out there that are coming out with just thinner, lighter, more capable body armor for a lot cheaper than it was, just a couple of years ago. So that it is cool to see the innovation. I'll tell you what, if between long range shooting or just gun stuff in general, it's the best time to be alive ever, right? I mean, there's just so many more options out there than there's ever been. And it's a good time to be in the industry. I love it. Wouldn't want to do anything else.
I completely agree. I feel very blessed that people pay me to play with gun stuff and write about it. I have zero complaints.
I'm with
That's
you,
awesome.
man. I'm with you. I just wish I had a videographer. That's my only, so I wouldn't have to shoot my own videos. Or edit my own videos one of these days. One of these days I'll get out there. But it is nice, I'm sure you get it too. It's cool to see your inbox filled with people trying to. Sometimes it's annoying, but it is cool when like somebody, a good company is trying to contact you and do some sort of collaborative thing, or just send you something to test out. Or, when people are like, hey, I saw you, did a review on this. I want you to check this out. Those are cool things. But just like you, I know with us, it took a lot of work to get to that point. And yeah.
Now we have people coming in the shop asking for your autograph.
They do. They do. They live sad lives. No, I'm just joking. No, we appreciate it. As a matter of fact, it was a couple from. They didn't ask for my autograph, but they came by to see us. They were from Minnesota, right?
They jokingly asked for your autograph, but yeah. And then somebody this week asked.
You didn't tell me that. I would have driven to the store right then.
Somebody this week asked for your autograph. They actually asked for mine too, and I was like, "No, as scary as you want."
No, they want yours. No, but it's cool to look. This is I know this is what I love doing, and I never thought that I'd be making a living doing this, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing for all the people out there that support us. We appreciate what you guys do. So Adam, that's one thing we haven't talked about. Do you do any long range shooting?
No, not for lack of interest. It's just where I'm at in the sticks of Minnesota. Like I can barely find enough free range between all the trees to shoot like 100 yards. Like there's
Sure.
very little long range opportunities in our state.
Yeah.
There's a couple ranges. I think there's like 2 in the states that offer shooting beyond 300 yards, and they're not near me. So like whenever I go to like SHOT Show, or if I'm at any XYZ media events, if I have the opportunity to shoot long range, I do, because it's a hole in like my shooting portfolio, my shooting abilities, because I just don't have the opportunities to train it.
Yeah. No, it is hard for a lot of people. Like, Chris was just on here last week, and we were talking about the fact that I have literally 1,000-yard range,
5 miles.
5 miles from me, right? So, people, if you have a long range near you that is within any distance, folks, you don't know how lucky you are. But no, that's definitely we need to get you down here, man. We need to have you come out to a course. We'd love to have you down. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we just started new courses this year. We've been teaching long range courses for a long time, but we just kicked it off with Ray Helms, the XP Long Range Academy, that we'll be doing down in Rocky Mount, Virginia. It's about 2.5, 3 hours south of here. Great facility. Again, we have a great facility over here that's nearby. That's a lot of fun to shoot at. Not the best place to teach long range at for lack of classrooms, and the ranges. You're shooting over a large valley, so there's no way to teach people how to read wind at that facility. But we did it right this time, and luckily we were able to get a bunch of sponsors on board, and which came together really quick too. It was one of those things where, we reached out to some folks, and they were happy. Everything from Masterpiece Arms, Thunder Beast, Zeiss, MDT. It was really cool to see the love and support they sent to old Paramount down here. We appreciate that. It was good times. But yeah, man, we'll get you down here and do some shooting. We'll fix all the holes in your repertoire there, and make sure you're putting holes downrange at 1,000 yards plus.
I appreciate it.
You can even bring that Springfield M1 Grand or whatever you got going on.
My long range rifle is a Springfield Waypoint. So they have like Gucci long range rifles now, and
I've
I
heard
have
of the
shot
Waypoint. I've
that.
never seen one. I've never seen one.
You mind?
No,
Give me
go
a
ahead.
second here.
Wait.
Adam, hold on. On live streams, for whatever reason, they'll shut us down if we're touching firearms. But we'll have to
Got
come
it.
up with something, and I would like to see. Yeah, we'll have to come up with something with that. Maybe we'll do a little collaborative video that we pre-tape or something like that, and then we can do a review on that. I think that would be cool though. But yeah, they will literally shut us down during a live stream if we touch firearms. I forgot about that.
That's
But yeah,
another
man.
Springfield gun to check out. The Springfield Waypoint is legit. It's $2,500, so it better be. But that's a very good rifle.
Sounds good. No, yeah, I would definitely. I've heard of them. I've never seen one in person. I don't think, and I'm surprised because we get so many clients coming through with so many different guns.
Right.
Yeah, I've never seen a Springfield Waypoint in person. It's getting past my bedtime. I start losing the ability to speak.
Sorry if I keep looking down, folks. The puppy's on his bed at my feet, and I just keep checking on him.
He's just looking
Oh,
down
it's
at
all
me.
good. I'm sorry that my room is dark because it's getting dark outside now.
Yeah,
Where I'm at.
Yep. Well, I think. Hey, Sean, we got any other questions going on over there?
No, I think that about sums it up.
Yep.
Well, cool, folks.
Although I do have to say something. It's funny because I've been listening to Adam. So like I'm a career firefighter and volunteer firefighter. My wife is a town councilwoman that I pressure her into politics a lot. So I just text her as like, hey, this is like us but reversed.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Well, cool, man. Well, listen, we really appreciate you coming on tonight. I think it was a good discussion, relevant discussion, and some important topics were covered. And I think that's something that I like talks like this because sometimes it redirects my focus. And no, I appreciate the fact that you brought, especially force escalation at a civilian from a civilian standpoint. I think that's really important and something we don't focus on enough, without a doubt.
Right.
Well, cool, folks. I think we're going to call it right there. Adam, stand by. We'll after we close out here, we'll talk a little bit at the end. And but anyways, folks, we really appreciate you tuning in tonight. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday. I don't know what the show is going to be about next Wednesday. I figured it out. But yeah. Oh, folks, make sure you go check out the upcoming XP Long Range Academy courses. We have our tactical carbine handgun courses up. Go check out all that. If you haven't looked through the website, I'm getting ready to shoot out a newsletter, which I'm getting ready to talk to Sean about right now, getting a little more regular on those. Folks, we have added probably 15 new brands or so in the last probably 6 months. And we got another big brand that most of you have heard of. I'm pretty excited. They kind of reached out to us.
It's so funny. Word traveled fast. Somebody came in the shop today and was like, I just talked to so-and-so, and they said that this is happening.
Yeah. So anyways, we got a lot of exciting stuff going on and more stuff coming up. But yeah, go check out the courses. We got med courses coming up as well. Also, the driving courses. We got high performance evasive driving courses. Those are filling up. Off-road courses, all that good stuff. But anyways, folks, we're going to let you go. Thank you, Adam, for coming on. And until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.